CB6,
Here.
CB7.
Here.
Thanks, bud. CB8.
Oh, could you hear me? Here.
CB9. Here. CB10. Here. CB11. Here. And CB12.
Here.
Also want to acknowledge Councilman Powers' office is here, so thank you, Franklin, for being here. And I think with that, we can get started. First, I'd love to have an adoption of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Great. Also wanting an adoption of the March 2025 Borough Board minutes.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Same. Great, thank you. I will hold off on the borough president's report because I think he'll be joining us in just a little bit. So what I'd like to actually move on to now is going to be our vote on the Midtown South mixed use plan, which I think maybe our office is the only one that calls it Mix. I hope that's not the case, but I really like that.
Yeah, it sounds
nice. It flows. So we will start that portion. I'm gonna pass it off to DCP to give a very brief presentation just as clarity for the voting folks. But I just also wanted to flag, this is an item for everyone to be aware that is a voting item for the borough president, Councilmember Botcher, who's joined us virtually. Thank you so much. For Councilmember Powers and Community Board and Community Board 4 and 5. So just so everyone is aware of that. With that, I'm happy to pass it to DCP. I'll share the presentation so everyone can see it online.
Great. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nabila Malik. I'm the Deputy Director of the Manhattan office at City Planning, and I'm joined by Andy Cantu, one of the project managers for the Midtown South Mixed Use Plan. We always call it MSMX, but that's okay. So we're really excited to be here to share the MSMX plan. It's really the result of years of study and engagement with local stakeholders. And we're really grateful for all of your insights and feedback throughout this process. And next steps in the process following this will be a public hearing at the City Planning Commission, which we anticipate holding sometime next month. So we welcome your continued participation. All right, so I'm just going to quickly walk you through some of our goals for MSMX. MSMX, the plan lays the foundation for a more vibrant neighborhood where housing, a strong economy, and high quality public realm can all coexist. And so firstly, we want to foster that 24/7 mixed use neighborhood by putting into place new zoning districts that will expand housing opportunities where they currently are either restricted or don't exist at all due to today's M1 zoning. The plan will also include mandatory inclusionary housing, or MIH, to ensure that new and converted buildings include permanently income restricted homes. The plan will also allow for important community facilities like schools and libraries that would serve residents and strengthen the neighborhood. With M1 zoning, those uses are currently not permitted. So at the same time, we want to balance housing with economic activity and support the mix of businesses that already call Midtown South home. And so that means using both zoning and non-zoning tools to allow for an easier mixing of uses and to support key industries. Finally, we're focused on improving the overall quality of life, enhancing street activity, creating more inviting public spaces, and making the neighborhood a great place to gather and enjoy day or night. And as part of this effort, we're expanding incentives to improve transit and create new public spaces, as well as introduce new urban design rules that reflect the existing loft character of Midtown South. And I just want to say, that, you know, with the recent lifting of the state 12 FAR cap, along with the new high-density residential districts introduced through City of Yes for Housing Opportunity, that are now part of the MSMX plan, really presents an unprecedented opportunity to deliver substantial housing, including permanently affordable housing in a centrally located area. And so with the zoning districts proposed, the MSMX plan is expected to generate close to 10,000 new homes to meet the needs of the city during this housing crisis. So with that, I'll pass it off to Andy to walk you through the details.
Thanks. So I'm going to move pretty quickly to the actual proposal, but for the benefit of the folks in the room who might not have seen this before, this is the area we're talking about in yellow. These are 4 non-contiguous manufacturing zone districts highlighted in yellow. We refer to them by their ordinal directions, so northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. They're represented by council members Powers and Botcher. The vast majority is in Community District 5, with a few portions in the southwest and the northwest that are in CD4. This is probably the most centrally located place in the city, in the middle of Manhattan. Incredibly transit rich, 15 subway lines in a short walk. All the New Jersey Transit, PATH, Amtrak, every commuter line, all the buses at Port Authority, right in the middle of this area. This area has historically been and continues to be a really important regional job center. About 135,000 jobs within over 7,500 businesses. So really, really critical reservoir of important jobs for the city. It's surrounded by mixed use residential and commercial areas that currently contain housing. But the area itself contains very few residential units. And we think that because of all of these opportunities, it makes sense to introduce housing here. So that's just a quick overview. Now to the proposal itself. We're proposing 2 land use actions, a zoning map amendment, which would rezone all of the existing M16 and M16D districts to high density paired manufacturing residential districts, which I'll go into detail about in a little bit. That map amendment would also establish the new special district and reconfigure some boundaries of 3 other special districts in the area to sort of create a more cohesive zoning map. The zoning text amendment, in addition to mapping MIH for the first time in Midtown, it would also create special regulations for the special MSX district. And like Nabila said, those bespoke rules would control things like street wall and bulk and making sure that the built form matches the existing loft-like context of the area. So this is what the zoning map would look like based on our proposal. We're proposing these 3 flavors of high density paired mixed use districts: M19AR12, M18AR12, and M18AR11. These pairings allow sort of the broadest range of possible uses, including light manufacturing, wholesale, community facility like schools and museums, as well as residential, in addition to sort of the commercial and retail that are already allowed under the current zoning. So for our first district, we're proposing M19AR12. This would be mapped in the 2 northerly quadrants, as well as a portion of the southwest that wraps around the future Penn GPP right over here. These districts would have a maximum residential FAR of 18 and a maximum non-residential FAR of 15. All of the zoning districts that I'm going to show you have the exact same bulk regulations, or sorry, building envelope regulations, which I'll detail in a little bit. Okay, then we're gonna go right through this. We're proposing M18A R12 for a portion, for all of the southeast and a portion of the southwest. This area has a little bit more of a residential character, so we felt like it was more appropriate to put our thumbs on the scales for residential. So the residential FAR here is 12, residential FAR here is 18, non-residential FAR is 12. And then for the remainder of the southwest, as you sort of taper off in density from Midtown to Chelsea, we felt that it was appropriate to create districts that sort of reflect this transitional area. And we're proposing maximum residential FARs of 15 and non-residential FARs 12. So we have the exact same bulk regulations across regardless of FAR. So we have a minimum street wall height of 60 feet, maximum street wall height of 155 feet, which is consistent with the prevailing loft building character of the neighborhood. We are trying to incentivize and mandate actually a really strong street wall to prevent sort of gaps in the street wall, these missing teeth that we call them, that you see with a lot of hotel development over the last 15 years. So we're mandating 100% of the first story be within 8 feet of the street line, and above the first story, 70% of the street wall has to be within 70% of the, 8 feet of the street line. That will allow for sufficient architectural expression, articulation, while keeping that strong street wall in place.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just one moment. So I think unfortunately the borough president may be on right now and just wanted to, he may have to jump off soon. So Mark, are you able to join us here? We see you and I think you're on mute.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I know that you have to jump in just a moment, so I don't know if you wanted to jump in with.
I would love to, and I apologize first for not being there, and secondly for having such a tight schedule. In a few minutes, I'm going to be speaking at the grand reopening of the Frick collection. Super exciting cultural project. I'll let you know how it is, although the reviews already have been spectacular. So thank you for accommodating me on this busy morning. I know our main topic today is our big land use application. I'll say a word about that in a moment, but just a few other things I wanted to touch on briefly. The first one is a tragic topic with the crash of the helicopter in the Hudson last week, the loss of 6 lives, a pilot and 5 family members. And I think on this board and many of us individually, we have talked for years about the problems of the tourist helicopter industry in Manhattan and the risks it poses. It's very sad, but this is far from the first tragedy. We've had over 30 crashes of helicopters in New York City since the 1980s, many of them fatal. I believe also over 30 fatalities over that time. And it's one of the reasons why many of us have called for a ban on non-essential helicopter flights. Of course, we wouldn't include law enforcement or emergency response or anything used by journalists. But for these kind of discretionary flights, and I think many of you agree that the risks outweigh the benefits. And we have some control here because we own the heliports from which this helicopter took off downtown and also the others. And we believe rules could be put in place to help prevent these kinds of tragedies in the future. Anyway, on more happier topics, I do want to thank all of you, or so many of you, for joining us at our annual address a couple weeks ago. We just had big turnout, big energy, and I'm really grateful to so many community board members who joined us, and really proud of our borough. Happy we could come together in that important way. I want to also share some good news on a topic we've spoken about many times here, which is our battle to rein in the epidemic of scaffolding And you've heard the stats, but we have 4,000 sidewalk sheds on the street in Manhattan. Many of them, hundreds have been up for more than 5 years, some 10 and 15 years. And you don't see this in other cities. You don't see this in Chicago or Paris. And we can do better in New York. And I'm really excited that we are going to do better now, thanks to the passage of really landmark legislation in the city council. Shout out, not sure if they're here, but Councilmember Keith Powers, who led on this, has been brilliant. Councilmember Eric Botcher has also been amazing and has some key bills in the package. And in brief, this is going to bring the first major reform to local law 11, the most significant reform to it in decades. And it's going to allow some flexibility so that buildings have a different cycle for when they need to inspect based on how new they are, based on the kind of materials they're built with, based on how recently they've done a major facade renovation. Right now, it's all fixed. It's every 5 years, no matter what. And they're going to be looking at a review. They're going to be reviewing inspection cycles of 6 up to even 12 years, depending on the circumstances. Also important improvements on the design criteria, so they're not all these ugly green plywood designs, and real penalties for owners who just refuse to make facade repairs because they're happy to leave the scaffolding up. This is going to change the look and feel of Manhattan. I really believe this. I'm really excited for this, for these bills to be implemented. Um, I I do want to say a word about the main topic today, which is the land use proposal for Midtown South. I know you're midway through this great presentation from City Planning, and we're going to talk about the details here. We have like a 6-page reso that we're considering that really dives into the details. But I just want to take a moment to remind us of the big picture here, because it's kind of incredible that we have 42 blocks of Midtown Manhattan that haven't really had their zoning updated since the golden age of manufacturing here. And while there are some wonderful, precious garment production businesses still in the district, and we want to support and nurture them, they represent really just a tiny fraction of the space in this very large swath of Midtown. And it's hard to admit, but the truth is that mass garment manufacturing is not coming back here. It's just not. Despite what Donald Trump thinks, it's not coming back to the United States. And in the off chance that it does, it's not going to come back to Midtown Manhattan. And I think it's just time to admit that. And honestly, it's been clear for decades. And over that time, we've had some um, some use of that vacant manufacturing for office space, which has helped to bring a little bit of vibrancy back into the neighborhood. But even there, post pandemic, I think we have to admit these are not the kinds of buildings that are successful now for office space. It's really the newer buildings that are succeeding now in this office market. And so we need a new opportunity, and we're in the midst of a housing crisis. And so this rezoning would finally update this neighborhood for the 21st century, create opportunity for thousands of units of housing and affordable housing, bring some vibrancy to a neighborhood that has even had, I think, some public safety challenges because of the scale of the vacancy. And we've really appreciated all the work that CBs 4 and 5 have done on this, and we've been really attentive. And we've also, I think, in this resolution addressed some really important issues you've raised, like the need to have a public realm fund, which was something that was so successful in the Midtown East rezoning and playing out really well now. We've talked about wanting as much as possible to prioritize the production of affordable housing, not just housing period, but affordable housing. And we also heard from you about an interest in making sure that we have as much conversion of existing structures as opposed to tear downs and rebuilding. And I think you'll see that reflected in the way the resolution is crafted. We definitely tried to be attentive to those concerns. I think on net, we have something really positive for the city here that we can do. to bring about a new era for the neighborhood, a renaissance for this part of Midtown, and provide homes for a lot of New Yorkers. So very excited about that. I'm actually gonna have to pause and hop off. I apologize just because of my schedule, speaking at the Frick in a couple minutes. But thanks everybody. Thanks to city planning, and I'll turn it back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Borough President. Thank you, everyone, for allowing us a moment. I think we can go through the final part of the presentation, and then we can move into comments from everyone else.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll just sort of skip to the sort of other regulations that are part of this proposal. So we're proposing a floor area exemption for public schools up to 150,000 feet for large sites. This is not necessarily a bonus or an incentive. It just makes it easier for school construction authority to partner with private property owners to potentially locate a school in the future. We did not, as part of our environmental impact statement, anticipate a negative impact on school seats, but that option is there should SCH choose to use it in the future. We're introducing the covered pedestrian space bonus here for the first time. This is also known as the indoor POPs. It's available throughout basically all of Midtown. We have a lot of really good, high quality, successful examples of these. And they're especially useful in a neighborhood like this, which is really sort of space constrained. There's not a lot of parks or open space available to the public. That in and of itself is a special permit process. So even though we're making it available here, if someone wanted to avail themselves of it in the future, they would still need to go through a full ULURP and go through the community board. We are currently, the existing transit bonus is available to the vast majority of the study area. The standard radius that applies to around transit stations is 500 feet. That applies to the vast majority of the study area today. What we're doing with this proposal is expanding that radius to 1,500 feet to cover some of more of the marginal areas in the northeast and the southeast, so that the entire study area could potentially take advantage of that 20% bonus that comes in exchange with really critical infrastructure improvements like elevators, other ADA accessible features for the MTA. We are removing the 10,000 square foot cap on retail establishments, which is standard for M1 districts. But we think because historically this area has been sort of a regional shopping destination and you have Macy's right at the nexus of these four areas, it makes sense to lift that cap and allow for a wider range of commercial uses to locate. In order to sort of improve the site planning for larger sites that may be constrained or have something, have existing buildings, we're reducing the minimum distance required between buildings on the same zoning lot to 8 feet. And we're allowing split lots with historic landmarks to transfer their floor area between zoning district boundaries. This just allows for a little bit more flexibility in site planning and doesn't constrain these larger development sites so much. During the public review process, we heard that flashing signs were a really important thing for the community. They wanted to prohibit them, so we're introducing prohibitions on flashing illuminated signs throughout the district. And then when it comes to things like promoting active streetscapes, we are introducing our new Tier B and Tier C street frontage regulations, which were introduced in City of Yes for economic opportunity. These regulations control things like where parking and loading can be located on the ground floor, how wide residential and non-active uses can be on the ground floor, basically just trying to improve the pedestrian experience, limit blank walls, improve transparency between the sidewalk and the interiors, things like that. And like I mentioned earlier, we're making a few cosmetic changes to some special district boundaries in and around the area. And happy to go into more detail if people have questions, but that's essentially the long and short of the proposal, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Is there anybody here first in the room that has a question? No? Okay, Tammy, I see, I'm gonna actually stop the presentation so that we can see everybody. I see some hands. Oh, actually, I see it actually in order now. So, Councilmember Botcher, you're up first.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to speak. It's great to see everyone in a room in which I've spent many hours throughout my career. Wish I was with you there in person, but I really want to thank Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine for his leadership, as well as my colleague, Councilmember Keith Powers, with whom we're working on this proposal. And to me, this proposal is not just an opportunity to create thousands of units of permanently affordable housing and housing in general, but it's also an opportunity to correct what are really glaring flaws in the current zoning, which are really symbolized by a lot of the development that we've seen in Midtown. We're talking about enormous towers with very few apartments. And I think the poster child for that, in my view, is the building on Fifth Avenue that totally blocks the Empire State Building from the Flatiron. And I think there's like 40 apartments in it or something like that. I mean, it's really it's really an unsustainable status quo that we would be correcting with this proposal to really achieve buildings that are rental buildings with many apartments, including many permanently affordable apartments. Now, the key, though, will be to achieve a balance, a healthy mix of commercial, light manufacturing, residential, conversions, and new construction. And that's what I look forward to working with all of you on. I really believe that we have a huge opportunity here to really do something great for New York and great for Midtown, where many of you know, we struggle with a lot of issues in Midtown with respect to public safety and general disorder on the streets. And we know that neighborhoods that are live, work 24/7 neighborhoods are safer and more vibrant than neighborhoods that are simply commercial, industrial without residential. So thank you to all of you, Community Boards 4 and 5, for your partnership on this. I'm really excited to continue working with you on this in the weeks to come.
Thank you, Council. Tammy, so you have your hand up. Do you want to unmute?
Thanks. Thank you very much. It's fascinating, and thank you for presenting it all at Borough Board. It's really awesome. I wanted to ask about, I noticed that the FAR bonus, right, for the POPs, as we say, is in there. Is there anything based with the regular text amendment changes or the zoning changes that increases the amount of open space in consideration of hopefully the massive amounts of residential that we're going to have? Is there any baseline addition to public open space, whether active or passive, that's included in any of the zoning changes or any of the text amendment changes that's integrated, that does not include or the FAR bonus? So if a developer doesn't opt for a POPs to get that bonus, is there any other way? And I guess that goes to DCP.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
would just say thank you for the question. So whenever DCP does a neighborhood-wide rezoning, we really try and identify city-owned property that we can leverage to try and deliver community benefits, whether that's a public school or a police station or open space. In this case, we have vanishingly little publicly owned land in this area. So for that reason, we have to try and leverage the private sector to try and deliver open space when and where we can, which is why we're, expanding these opportunities for POPs. That being said, we know that not every site is going to avail themselves of these bonuses. So we're looking outside of zoning. We're working with our elected officials, city council, parks, DOT to try and identify improvements and capital expenditures outside of zoning that can be part of this plan, but live outside of it. So Harold and Greeley Squares, those are really at the nexus of these four quadrants. We're exploring some potential capital improvements there and some other areas. But to your question, no, nothing specifically in these two actions that would deliver public open space.
And then I guess my follow-up is improvements to existing are all dependent on budget. So if it's not in city budget, it doesn't happen. Is there any way, somebody spoke of a public realm fund, is there any way that contributions within the rezoning could go towards that? Just trying to understand how we can gain more without necessarily to really make it a live-work situation in a neighborhood when we're going to hopefully add tons and tons of residents.
Yeah, it's a great question, and currently there's nothing in the proposal that introduces the concept of a public realm fund. However, that is something we can continue to explore with the community and the council members as this process moves forward. But I will say, as Andy noted, that we are currently working with the Department of Parks and DOT to think through what public realm improvements the city can do in the near future for this area.
Thank you. Thanks, Tammy. Since this is also a public hearing, I want to open it up in case there are any members of the public that wish to join and either ask a question or provide testimony at this time. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, but we will keep that open. I think now we will move to a vote. I know that
But can we, I'm sorry,
sorry.
CB4 would like to go on the record, if that's
sure.
okay? So just so everyone realizes, we have CB5 really has the main stake in this. They have a lot, but we do, CB4 has a little bit of it. And we have long advocated for MIH and also for mixed use for this area. Because even though the garment district is no longer manufacturing, it is tied to Broadway. And there are a lot of Broadway based businesses that are there that we wanted to protect. So thank you for understanding the mixed use in that. Just so people know here, just have a reference, our community board overwhelmingly voted to deny this, and it was a deny unless. So we probably will be continuing that here, just so everyone knows. And just to give a framework, the three most glaring things was that we have tried, CB4 has tried very hard to avoid, was incentives for demo. And here there's huge incentives for demolition instead of transferring, so we want to avoid that. And that's one of the things we talked to you guys about. The second was the combination of bonuses. Really made us uncomfortable because, as they said, that the max is 15 FAR, max is 15 FAR. It's not. With bonuses, it could go all the way up to presumably 22 FAR. And as Tammy very astutely pointed out, that's without open space. So it leads us to our third concern, was that this is very, very susceptible to billionaires row type of situation. Which we all know is probably a blueprint in what not to do in Midtown. So anyway, those are our concerns, and we voiced those concerns to you guys at our land use and also in our letter. So Eric, I know we talked offline, and we would love it if we could. I mean, it was a very long letter, but I won't go through the whole letter of our requests, but we definitely wanted a special permit over 12 FAR to avoid these pitfalls, so we can then attack piece by piece of what this would look like. We wanted to protect against bonus building. We wanted to require a minimum of 30% of all units to be permanently affordable. And we wanted to restrict lot mergers to go back to that billionaire's row effect of the pencil building. And those are what we would talk to your land use people about. Those were our 3 additions that we would like to include in this, if it was amenable to the borough president.
So I think with the folks here in the room, you would probably need to introduce that motion and see.
I would like to make a motion for the 1, 2, 3, 4 amendments, or I know you guys write your letters differently, but
Right, for our
we would like to
resolution.
include, correct?
So is there anyone that wants to second?
Sorry, could you
Second.
summarize
Yes,
the 4?
thank you, Tammy Semrite, but I,
This is a voting item for 5 of us here. So among the voting members.
so Brad, this would be what we talked about. This is special permit over 12 FAR to avoid those pitfalls. And obviously I have detailed language of that. This is just the overview. One would be protecting against the bonus building, and I know you and I talked about that might not be a situation, but it's written that it could be, and I know we talked about that as well. I require a minimum of 30% of all units to be permanently affordable. Because the higher density residential development will not provide income restricted affordable housing unless they're required to do so, and we want them to be required to do so. And restrict lot mergers.
And sorry, just for those restrict lot mergers, is that wholesale or is that like another special review sort of thing, like the?
Let me get to it here. It was impose restrictions on lot mergers and transfer of development rights. We didn't go into detail in our letter. That's what we wrote in our letter. Because as you know, the transfer, that's the one that's gonna go, when you transfer, it's gonna go sky high.
So again, with that, with what Leslie has introduced, I think, again, between the council members' offices, and our office and, Brad, if there's a motion to second that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this about sort of, I think CB4 and CB5 are aligned in sort of some of the outcomes of these. And I think that we would like to sort of move forward with some of these. I think some of these are a little bit outside of the scope of what was discussed at CB5. So I think I would support the 30% affordable and sort of the bonus building, even though it's coming at it from a slightly different angle from what we were going for. I think the special permits and the restricting of the lots just didn't come up, so I can't support those. So if it's a motion for just those 2, I could support that, but I think the other 2 outside is of the scope of sort of what we discussed.
Okay, I know, then that's fine. I mean, because we're obviously limited here. It's 2 people. It's 2 voting members.
As well as our president and the council members'
Oh,
office.
okay.
So
I don't know what, and I know Councilmember Botcher has definitely reviewed our letter, and we've talked about our concerns in this, so those would be our main adjustments to the letter.
So you would want to submit those, just those 2? Is that?
I would second those 2 if that were the motion. I can't second all 4.
Then, I mean, we would have to go, would anyone else second? Would you second? Would the borough president second that?
I don't think that we would at this moment.
Okay, then we would go with the 2. And then we would work with our council member on the others.
Okay, so I will then move forward with you seconding those 2. I'm sorry that we're repeating this for clarity. Can you remind me, what are the 2? Again, just so
It was
that.
the protection against the bonuses, the bonus building, which though they said max 15, it would go up to max possibly 21.6 to be exact, I believe, FAR. And also require a minimum of 30% of all units to be permanently affordable because of the higher density residential development, won't provide that income restricted affordable housing unless they were required to.
For clarity on the protection, is it at a certain amount or it's just because I know that there are some sites that the bonus may not reach to the threshold that you're concerned about? Like, is there an FAR that you mentioned that?
You mean like a target FAR?
Yeah.
No, we don't, we never have in all of our, we don't have a limit of the FAR. That's why we wanted to do the piece by piece. That's why we were looking for the special permit of above 12 to address that concern.
Is that? It's
It's just, the special permit, which is so we can look at each one.
Yeah.
Because he brings up a very valid point.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And for us, I think we came at this from a slightly different perspective. We had an outside consultant who kind of came to us and said that if you look at all of these FARs, actually, it's more likely that you will just have people who go with just the base FAR, because in the proposal, at least, those FARs are probably sufficient. A sufficiently large building that no one's going to go above that anyway. So actually, our concern was that people will ultimately end up not needing to be using these special bonuses because they won't need to, improve transit because they can build the largest building they could possibly want with the base FAR. So for us, but I think it's coming at it from sort of the same perspective of creating these sort of like overly large buildings that then are not sort of contextual in the area, which is why some of the proposals in our resolution are for sort of targeted or more selective downzoning in order to actually incentivize those bonuses rather than trying to pull them away so that they're not stacked on. Because actually that was sort of, as I
By the way,
initially
your
looked at
letter
it.
was very good.
Thank you very much. Yeah, our land use team did a lot of work on this, worked very hard, so.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So we have that, the motion's been seconded. I will take a vote on this. First, I'll see, I'm not sure if the council member is still with us and wants to jump in and vote. Oh, they are, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna let this all play out because we'll be negotiating all this in the future, so
That is, okay.
Godspeed.
I will also pass it.
I think we're gonna take the same position as our councilmember vouchers.
And similarly, as we move forward with our resolution, I think this is good information for us to have as the borough president starts to flesh out their personal recommendation, but I think just for the borough president's sake, I will also not be supporting it, so.
Sure.
Thank you, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you can see, our amazing land use team is taking note of all of this, so it is not falling on deaf ears, so.
No,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, with that, not seeing any public attendees, I am happy to move this to a vote essentially as is. Everyone who is a voting member has already seen the resolution, so.
Sorry, just a point of information on that. I know that we had discussed offline after you circulated the initial resolution. Is there like a final text that's available somewhere, or did I miss an email or?
It should be. Do we have that? Sorry. And I'll pass it to Madeline, our.
Yes, I printed, maybe that's the whole thing.
Sure, it is, so just as everyone had already discussed, and everyone is aware, the voting member here, the information had been moved as we discussed fully.
So everything that's sort of, I printed out our resolution, but not the
The
one that you-
CB5 resolution items have been moved on to the resolve.
into a resolve clause with sort of a preface that the request of CB5 is.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
That is exactly.
Okay, then, all right.
Okay, so with that, so a vote, Councilmember Boucher, we're voting on this as is. Would you like to submit your vote? We'll leave the vote open for the council member, for Councilmember Power's office, voting on it as is.
Yes.
CB5?
Yes.
CB4?
No.
The borough president is a yes on this, and we will leave the vote open for when Councilmember Boucher is able to join us again. So for now, this motion seems to have passed, but we will wait for Councilmember Boucher to finalize it. But thank you all for your patience. Thank you to CB4 and CB5, who, as the borough president acknowledged, have done an incredible amount of work on this. We do not take for granted the amount of work that our volunteer board members are doing and chairs. So really just want to say thank you for giving this all the attention that you have. With that, I'll respond to Tammy in a moment. With that, I will move us along to chair reports. It is April for CB4, so Leslie, you are up.
Oh my God.
I know, right?
Okay. By the way, I'm the first vice chair. I'm not the chair. I'm stepping in for Jessica. She is away. We really don't have a big report. Actually, it's very similar to the one that we had last month, from what I understand. Our huge issue, and it's really taking front and center, is our NYCHA redevelopment in Chelsea. We have two big complexes. It has been going through a very long year drawn process about the redevelopment of those two huge NYCHA campuses. So right now, I guess we are kind of, I don't want to say going back to the drawing board, that would be inaccurate. But we are reopening the conversation to NYCHA tenants and the public on what is the best move forward. We already have, there already was an RFP related, in essence has the RFP. But instead of renovation to these campus apartments, they have planned to do demolition. And I think that is the sticking point with a lot of the NYCHA residents, or some of them, and some of the residents of the neighborhood. So we will be, and we can give this to the Borough President's office. I think he'll be involved at town hall, including all.
We are in conversation
Yeah.
with Jessica, and we're scheduling to see if we can find a date that works, because I know there was some
Exactly.
question about availability for some other members as well.
Exactly. So that's, I mean, I don't want to keep going on with, we've already monopolized a lot of this meeting, but that is our front and center piece right now. Another big thing is that we are trying to move ahead with the EDC on the Manhattan Cruise Terminal, which is in our district, is going ahead with a master plan. And they plan on renovating all the piers that all the cruise ships come in on. So we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4 berths and another pier 92. And that is going to be a multi-year, we're told about 30 years and billions of dollars. So that is another huge, massive project that is going on in our district. And to add to that, we have started work, they have started work on the Port Authority rebuilding, which is another massive project. So if you want any massive projects, come to CB4 and I will give you an update on all of them. But that's it from the Hell's Kitchen, Chelsea, West Side. Thanks.
Thank you so much. CB5, been up to anything lately? Or-
Just a couple things. Yeah. So the MSMX was and continues to be the big push for us. So now that we're through sort of the zoning aspect of this, we're moving into our points of agreement. That's going to be coming up at all of our committees to try and get sort of flesh out this to deal with some of like the public space issues that have come up, as well as some of the other city services, all the various aspects that aren't covered by zoning. So that's where we're moving on this next. Beyond that, there's active things always going. We're revisiting our cannabis task force guidelines to try and better align those with sort of the state guidelines as well, so that we can continue to review those. I think as part of this, it was a discussion, but ultimately determined it was probably not best tackled in the Midtown South rezoning, but we're also going to be revisiting sort of our stance on the hotel special permits, particularly for this area, to try and see if there's ways that we can encourage those while maintaining some of the protections that process provides. Penn Station is an always ongoing process for us. So we're sort of, now that we've sort of completed our phase 1 on that, we're sort of looking at how we can best move forward with that next. Those are sort of the big items, but there's lots going on, and then we're also just sort of trying to prepare ourselves and get ready for new members, which also is coinciding with thankfully our last ever June election before we move ours to November. So we've got a lot going on, but it's all good.
Great, thank you so much. Sandy, before I go to you, I know Marquise has to leave momentarily, so if you don't mind giving him a moment.
I'll be very good. So CB10, in the last month we've had a huge housing forum, which actually had press and had all of our elected officials come. It was held on Saturday. It was a full day of conference, of workshops, as well as panels. We had city agencies and just kind of a big housing forum. We're also having with CBs 9 and 11. We're having a legal forum now this week. I mean, not this week, this month. That's kind of also a follow-up to our housing conference where people can get legal advice. About housing and other issues. We also passed a resolution at our last board meeting condemning the dismantling of the Department of Education. Our board has been engaging a lot more in looking at federal legislation that is impacting our local community. We recently also passed a resolution condemning ICE raids that have been taking place. Those are some of the things we're doing. We're also in the middle of now activating our, we used to have and we haven't had LGBTQ task force that in our community. And we're also, well, at the same time, we're also looking to launch an initiative around engaging with clergy and faith-based community in Harlem. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Sandy?
I was going to just mention for new members, we actually have 2 members who are planning to leave the board. So we're sort of in this flux where you're just wondering if they should just leave right now. So we can roll them into the next, or they leave in September, but any advice on that would be welcome. Casino issues, that's become more of a hot topic because apparently they're going to be deciding some of the licenses this summer. So still looking for community input on that. MSBI closed, so we're in the process of trying to do some community outreach, probably with CB3, CB2, CB1, just trying to gather together some information on. We'd really like to see healthcare uses at that site remain, but we really need a lot of community support to have that happen. There's a lot, again, they won't do it with some push from the community. Public hearings, in our board, we say we speak through our resolutions. So it means we have a lot of trouble reaching those dates to pass a resolution at the committee, pass full board. I'm wondering if other boards have a better way to deal with that. And if you could let me know, it doesn't have to be here, but it's just something that we then miss quite often, giving testimony because we don't have a resolution in place in time. And I think an example is the charter commissions where they're happening very quickly. We don't know exactly what's going to be the outcome, but we really want to have a say. So looking for some advice for how we can incorporate that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug, I will pass it to you.
Thanks. Doug Kleiman, Vice Chair, CB7, sitting in for Beverly Donahue, who couldn't be there today, and I'm sorry that I'm not there personally with you. I did get the note about brevity in the shared reports, so I'll tell you we had a very vibrant discussion last night at our land use and housing meeting, and we did pass a resolution. Generally, as it relates to the ABC site, many of you are familiar with the prolific developer Extel and Gary Barnett, who has purchased the ABC site on the Upper West Side. It's a massive development. And as our council member described, we have kind of a Hobson's choice because it's basically a clean slate and as of right, which we could result in a tower as much as 1,600 feet next to the tower that the same developer's already built, which is about 775 feet. So we have a priority, of course, for affordable housing, and our resolution summarily basically said that we really are looking forward and inviting city planning to come to present the details of a text amendment, which would force a ULURP so that we could have 20% affordable housing on whatever portion of the site is developed for rental. So we'll see. It's an ongoing thing. It's been a discussion for about 4 years. We unsuccessfully had asked that the site, that the Lincoln Square Special District include this site, which was excluded when ABC was originally there. That is dead on arrival, but we also note that even if we had prevailed in that action, it would not have resulted in any affordable housing. So affordable housing is absolutely our number one priority. But of course, the Hobson's choice is, do we get a super tall trading in for affordable housing? And I think generally the understanding is yes. Again, a rock and a hard place. We did support a resolution, which was the narrow set of bills from Assemblymember Michael Lasher and Myrie regarding the narrow changes for discovery, the direct access from the DA's office into the NYPD. I know I heard a press conference last night that I believe that some of the discovery changes have been resolved up in Albany. We'll see what they come to, but it was a very delicate discussion because we want to make sure that we don't infringe upon defendants' rights. We don't want to go backward in time, but we think there's some practical changes that would result in aiding the DAs, but also not infringing upon defendants' rights. Let's see, real quick. We will be taking on a discussion and resolution as it relates to the state changes for the cannabis proximity restrictions. There's a proposal to reduce it from 1,000 to 500 feet from the from those dispensaries. We'll be having a discussion and holding a vote on that. It was a little bit polarizing in the sense that we've heard from some of our existing cannabis licensees who are opposed to it because they'd like the proximity protections. But on the other hand, there's been a lack of new legal cannabis dispensaries. So anyways, that's upcoming. And then we had a hearing on the 79th Street Crosstown, which actually goes all the way to the east side, on the capital improvements for the SBS project. It was very interesting to hear. And yes, I real quick, outdoor dining, we'll be having a discussion about potential modifications to the existing program. On helicopters, some of our members have been very active in Stop the Chop, and obviously the borough president just referenced the tragic crash, and I suspect that we'll probably be emphasizing a resolution also to ban non-essential flight. And last but not least, I want to say that I did attend the State of the Borough, and thank you for holding it in our district. And even in my alma mater, I went to the High School of Music and Art, which is now called LaGuardia, and it was really an incredible state of the borough, and it was very entertaining, but it was so wonderful to see so many performers, and it was really informative. So thank you for that. It was really great to attend. And one last thing, sorry. We will be distributing cards in multiple languages, particularly for restaurants and other businesses, to know your rights if ICE comes in to your doors. And we've been working, we have it in multiple languages. We've had a request for Mandarin, which we now have our state assembly member has printed. So we're going to be getting that out to almost all of our restaurants in our district so that people know their rights if ICE should show up at their establishment. Thank you, and I will be quiet now.
Thank you, Doug. I think there was a request from Tammy to share if possible, so.
Cards.
Yeah, the cards. Great, thank you so much. Addison, welcome. You're up.
Thank you so much. I'm Addison Lev. I'm the second vice chair of Community Board 8, filling in for Valerie Mason today, who is at the opening of the Frick alongside Borough President Levine. So our main update is that on April 9th, we held our land use meeting about the Euler process regarding the Lenox Hill Hospital application as part of their Euler process. We had a robust public testimony period where we had petitions with over 6,000 signatures, and we had over 600, nearly 700 written testimonies submitted to the board, as well as hundreds of speakers at our committee meetings. And there were concerns in the community about the scope and duration of the proposal that Lenox Hill was offering. And so the board ultimately decided on a disapproval unless certain conditions were met. These include a 215 height limit across the entire building, expanded accessibility for the 77th Street subway station for both the northbound and southbound platforms, among other conditions. So we're happy to circulate that resolution. It's also on our website. That passed by a vote of 23 yes, 14 opposed, and 1 abstention. But we want to emphasize again that we would like to see Lenox Hill stay in the neighborhood. We think it's an important part of our neighborhood and our community. However, and we would like to see them modernize. However, we would also like to see them partner with us more in sort of coming to a proposal that's acceptable to the community. We'd also like to put in a plug for our art show at James L. Cagney Place on May 31st with a rain date of June 1st. The art show is a great way to sort of bring the community together. We have artists from around the city come, display their artwork, sell their artwork, It helps build community. We have performers. And it's, hopefully in May, it'll be a nice day and we'll have good weather. And so it'll just be a great way for the Upper East Side to come together and the entire city to come together. So if you know anyone who would like to participate in the program, any artists who would like to participate, the deadline for artists to submit their artwork to display at the show is on May 5th. And anyone obviously can show up on May 31st, or if it rains, June 1st to enjoy the art and the weather. So thank you so much. That's the extent to my report, and thanks for having me today.
Thanks, Addison. Vic, I will pass it over to you.
Yes, good morning all. Vic Dead with CB9. The Department of Sanitation Containerization Program is moving into its second phase. It initially started with 10 blocks where they put containers in the street for refuge. So now it's going to expand to the entire district. It started off as very bumpy, lack of communication and transparency. It has improved. They come every other month to our meetings and communicate much better. So that has helped. There's still some concerns with parking because they're saying it's going to be about 1,000 containers in the street, which is going to eliminate quite a bit of parking. And that's still an issue. We're trying to negotiate somewhat. They have relented, and brownstone and townhouses can use wheelie bins so that they won't have to have a container in front of the building. So that will help somewhat. So we're ongoing talks with them. So it's been good. As Marquise mentioned, we will hold a legal forum on April 26th, focusing on housing, immigration, and knowing our rights, especially with everything that's going on right now in the country. A lot of people are concerned. We had an issue I guess about 2 months ago at one of our schools where parents had noticed ICE agents in the area and they became very afraid. So we're just trying to make sure people know their rights and are comfortable what's going on to what extent we can all be comfortable. I continue to work with State Senator Cordell Clare on this group on Harlem, and we're working with a lot of issues around Columbia. One being releasing some of their rent stabilized, rent controlled apartments that they use for their own affiliates to members of the community. And we're working pretty closely on that. So that's moving along. The other area there, which has been a real task, is the reopening of the gates at 116th Street. And I understand their concerns at things that are going on, but we have a lot of seniors and people with disabilities that live on one side of Columbia. It's 4 blocks to come back around to the subway. They were doing QR codes on your phone. They since stopped that for a while. So we're trying to revisit that. So that will help them. We will be holding several forums in the next 2 months. The first one being a senior resource forum for our seniors in the area, services that are available, free health exams, housing issues, food insecurity will be talked about. We'll be doing also something, our Economic Development Committee, around local businesses and entrepreneurs to assist them. We're looking at a health forum as well, around stress, childhood diseases, and prevention. And lastly, cannabis forum, just looking at local cannabis dispensaries and how we can better fit them into the community. And we passed, several resos last month. One was restoring federal funds to diabetes prevention. Diabetes is big in our community, so we're looking to have those funds restored. And the other one, which is MTA is proposing, maybe has started already, removing benches in the subway. They have these leaning bars where you lean against it. Seniors, people with disabilities, all type, that need the benches. I know is a homeless situation, but some of the new benches have barriers where you can't sleep on them, and that helps. I know it's a little bit of both, but we're just concerned with people with disabilities and seniors having somewhere to sit. And that kind of wraps up my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know Marquise already gave his report, so Rosa, I can pass it to you for CB11.
Thank you. I don't have like a full report. I have like just inviting you all to Earth Day celebration on April 22nd on Tuesday, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at El Museo del Barrio, which is in 104th Street and Fifth Avenue. Everyone is welcome. Send all your children from all the schools. We are going to have a live trash and like recycle items costumes, and models, letting people know here, this is made out of recycle items. And we're also going to have a chess art pop-up so kids can play, they can learn. And we're also going to have a presentation by SWAP, which is about composting, because the new law as of April 1st, they're gonna be checking your garbage for composting, following the laws, etc. And there's gonna be a lot of Earth Day celebrations that we are collaborating within our districts, and I think District 10 also. We have also been very busy supporting our members with their attendance. I know we've lost maybe 2 or 3 because their schedule got really busy. So we've been trying our best to support everyone as much as we can. And I think that's for me.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Catherine, before I jump to you, I think Councilmember Botcher, are you able to join us now? I think you might be on. Just give it one moment.
I'm here.
Great. We left the vote open, so see if you wanted to jump in and give your vote on the resolution.
I vote aye.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being with us. Catherine, I can pass it to you.
Okay. Washington Heights and Inwood. In terms of like internal board work, we got an exit survey. So for folks who were part of this, we had an annual survey. I think last year we started. I think I might owe a couple people the template, so I'm gonna work on that. But we also have an exit survey, my fault. We have an exit survey, which is like long overdue. So a lot of like kind of internal practices, particularly, with our board, I mean, all the boards, but around term limits. But for us, we've definitely been kind of like, all right, we got like 2-3 years to get a lot of practices in place. And that includes also, similar to you guys, reviewing a lot of our guidelines, particularly when it comes to dining out, has been really challenging. So we've had like a step A through step D in terms of how we're gonna tackle based on the timelines that DOT sends them over. And for us, some of them have been because of the quality of life issues within the district and a lot of the concerns, the roadway applications for us, we definitely need sufficient time to respond and post notice. So we've been working on multiple guidelines to be able to kind of disseminate that both for the public, but also for the operators to understand. We're also kind of discussing internally around our staffing. So for some folks who might remember, we were exploring having a part opening and got approval for a part-time kind of like outreach focused position. And again, based on the limits of like term limits and the capacity and looking at the capacity of our office staff, how can we best make sense of that? So we didn't really get the applications that we were hoping for that part-time position or the skill sets. So we're really looking at in the next few months of, what to kind of do with that line that we can either implement, or are we going to be bringing in kind of contractors? So looking at it that way. In terms of inside the district, I would just say like there's kind of like 2 big things. Next month, we're doing a public hearing around our public plazas and noise. We are bringing together all the operators of our plazas, DOT, our precincts. It's been a major headache in the last few years, just across the board, in terms of a lack of transparency, both from DOT, but also from the operators in terms of the events that take place, or how operators are selected, what they do and don't do. So we're having a hearing next month on that. And we hope it can help set the tone and improvements for the public realm office of DOT, in terms of just what guidelines they hold to a better standard for whoever they select as operators. And then we're also building towards a rezoning. I hate calling it a rezoning meeting, but it's like a commitment update meeting. So the Inwood rezoning came with a very long list of commitments. They actually posted a tracker in terms of where they are, and I don't think it's just for ours, I think it's all of the ones, so East Harlem included. And I know Jerome Avenue's on there too for the Bronx. So yeah, so we're basically bringing EDC, interagency meetings to talk about what they have and haven't done. So on the park side, it was like 100% completed, which is amazing given the budget that they have. But you know, for other agencies, not so much. And so because it's just been a very dramatic shift in the district, given the buildings that have come up all along to 107th Street, I think it's a really timely conversation. So we're working on that before our big break, so, or summer recess, I should say. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much. Tammy, you're up.
Thank you so much, and thanks. It's interesting being on Zoom at the meeting versus being in the room. I miss you all, and I'll see you next month. CB1's had a rough up and down. It seems like we are at extremes. I want to, you know, as far as the helicopters go, it's been a really strange thing within several weeks of welcoming the new operator and being very supportive of their move towards electric helicopters and the progression that we can make to improving that situation and quality of life issues surrounding it, the death and the tragedy for the tourism. It does go with the community board's position that while we support the use of the heliport for electric vehicles and last mile delivery and other things, we really want to work on the tourism issues that we have. And it seems like it's just so out of control, and where they fly, how they fly, and know that we need to partner with New Jersey, because if we push them off the island of Manhattan, all they're going to do is fly over from Jersey. It just doesn't end the problem, it just pushes it down the road. I want to, on the other hand, say thank you so much. We have kicking off the nice season of runs and walks. So we want to welcome anybody who'd like to come down on Sunday, April 27th for the annual 9/11 run walk. And then followed very quickly before we see each other next will be the American Heart Association run, which is all around Lower Manhattan, and the 5-borough bike tour. So while you're down here, have a cup of coffee, go to our stores, enjoy the area, stay for a while when you start or you finish. We are concerned, again, for another one of our major concerns. Two things I'll bundle together. Federal funding was pulled for our FIDI Seaport Master Plan that covers from the seaport all the way down to the Battery. We had not months, but years after Superstorm Sandy of generators parked on our streets due to the flooding that came. It's sad that the federal government, who just doesn't seem to recognize that Manhattan is an island, and we do need to protect all of the island, specifically withdrew 40 million. So that's very disconcerting. We're also spoke and doing a resolution on DOT's new rulemaking for the allowance of privatization of a portion of the seating in pedestrian plazas. We have a concern with that because not every pedestrian plaza is the same. And we actually think that we vote to turn our public streets into plazas for the public. It's not supposed to be for privatization for specific restaurants to have seating. Creating a have and have not scenario on the public streets is a concern for us. We have, on the positive side, we have a new green market coming to Battery Park City. We welcome, it's on Sundays. It'll start May 11th through November. We welcome everybody to come down. You can reach, it's right by the Irish Hunger Memorial. You can either take a ferry from the, uptown on the west side, or take any number of transit to get down. We welcome everybody to come. And then at the same time, again, this is one of those yin and yangs, one of our pops, a beloved pops that was award-winning with art and design, was demolished by the new owner of the building. And there is absolutely no reason. It's supposed to come for purview. DOB granted them the permits to demolish it. We're screaming in the wind. And DCP says, well, it could have happened, but they're not sure either because they weren't notified. We looked in our ZAP portal. We've been watching it very carefully because we saw it coming, and it just, without city oversight and any kind of conversation, There is a possibility it will be rebuilt back to what, space and everything that we had, but we have absolutely no idea because it wasn't done with the proper process. So we asked DCP and the city to look into it with legal and find out what's going on because we just watched the bulldozers roll it right on over. And then again, outdoor dining is incredible. It is so busy, but we met with SLA with CBs 2 and 3, and we really appreciate that because we're going to actually be changing our process to we have a separate stip that'll come when you come for outdoor dining, and that stip will lay out your SLA for your outdoor dining. So we're trying to streamline the process and make it easier for businesses so they don't have to come back to us 2-3 times for roadbed, sidewalk, liquor license. We understand that we want to support them and we want to make sure that they can do a one-stop shop if that's an opportunity that is provided. So that's kind of the yin and yang on balance for CB1. And then the only other question I have is for the Borough President's Office. With our new format and me trying to zip through as quick as I can through CB1, I'm going to leave a whole bunch of other stuff off. Within our 4-minute reports, is there still an opportunity to cross-ask questions, 1, and 2, how do we then move forward with things that we have asked and agreed on that we would like the borough president to take as, for example, a borough board vote on topic matter? And I think of that specifically as we're all going through the PCR conversations, perhaps in our boards, and we've had some conversations here about, doing a resolution to urge city council to move forward on a bill that establishes the laws for a public youth facility distancing for cannabis, which does not exist unless City Hall takes action and City Council. So we talked about it a couple of times. We haven't brought it onto agenda, and I just would like to understand a little bit better the process for that and how that's going. And for those who are following the PCR dialogue, we questioned and reached out to our senator and asked him to push because there was no posting of their rule changes on the website. And now the Office of Cannabis Management has posted as of yesterday the new rule change. Kind of hard when you're in the middle of the public comment period that it was never posted on their website. It was just if you got it by email, but I'm delighted to see that it's now hit their website. So that's an announcement. If you're looking for it, it's on their website for rules, and a question to the Borough President's Office on process for how we move forward in the new structured format. And I hope I didn't go over 4 minutes. Thank you.
You are perfectly fine. It is a framework. It's not a set deadline. I just want to be respectful because I know some folks have to go to work, have other things that they need to do. So just trying to be mindful. I think a couple of borough boards have gotten away from us. So I thought it was also a good time with Valerie joining us that we can just table set a little bit. So appreciate that. There's always room for crosstalk and questions. This is a forum for you to also hear from each other about things that are important to all of you. So that is important to us. On the matter of resolutions coming up, I'm always happy to do that. I think the instances that we've talked about, what we have always and we will always continue to push for is dialogue that's happening at the board first. I know some folks just want to check in with their members before they support something on behalf of their community boards. So if there is anything that like very specific that I try to make an effort of sending emails, not BCC'd, so everyone can kind of see each other, have their email addresses. So you have your new chair's email address. If there's something that you want to circulate that boards take up and have a comfort level to bring to a borough board resolution, I'm always happy to entertain those.
I might just say, like, as I noted, we speak through our resolution, so we need at least 2 months, maybe 3, to pass it through the board. So if it is something that, we just need advance warning.
Yeah, I think at different levels, like, you may need that much time. Some others may just need to talk to their exec committee. Some others want to bring something through committee to a full board vote. So I just want to be respectful of the other members of the boards that, you have to deal with. So hopefully that answers your question, Tammy. Great, thanks. I will pass it now to CB2.
Great. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being so welcoming. I'm excited to join you here. So I have a couple things I'll bring up for this forum regarding outdoor dining, FDNY concerns and agency coordination gaps. So CB2 has reviewed about 60% of the expected outdoor dining applications in our district so far. We have over 90 waiver requests in our district for being made to FDNY regarding the 15-foot emergency travel lane. Two of our council members elevated these concerns, which led the FDNY Commissioner's Chief of Staff to reach out to CB2 to attend one of our outdoor dining working group meetings, along with a senior advisor from FDNY. But after reviewing our questions, they then rescinded that, outreach, and they said they would instead reply to our questions. I'm happy to share those questions if anyone's interested, as well as the responses when we receive them. But that was a month ago, and so we are still waiting on responses. So we are flagging this as both a safety concern and a breakdown in transparency that likely affects other boards as well. So I threw out the statistic that we have over 90 of those requests. So that's about 46% of our total roadway cafes that we are expected to have, or that we've reviewed so far. That. The second one is Gansevoort Square and our need for unified planning. We are continuing to raise concerns about the fragmented piecemeal planning at the city-owned Gansevoort site. And again, I don't think anyone here needs to hear more about how just the urge for a unified vision and encouraging others here that also have city-owned parcels to join us in pressing for that better community engagement and their planning. Red Door Place, food security at risk. We are given these kind of macro headwinds, we're flagging this particular issue. This is a nonprofit that serves over 7,000 New Yorkers and is a food pantry and soup kitchen. They're at risk of losing their location, and they're seeking help identifying a new 3,000 square foot space with cold storage. And so I'm flagging this because the space insecurity is going to be a growing issue for nonprofits. I think for all of us here in our districts, and the service disruptions could ripple beyond our individual district lines. I won't go over this one, and Tammy already spoke about the SLA coordination with outdoor dining. We are also advocating for stronger know your rights education regarding sanctuary city protections. And then the last one that I have is about commercial signage in landmark districts. We're starting to see an uptick in oversized, highly visible digital screens being proposed in historic districts. So if anyone is seeing that as well, these have implications for driver safety, neighborhood character, and can be precedent setting. So we are just looking for LPC and city planning to have their guardrails on that. And then my last two quick asks, I think I have 26 seconds left, is we're looking to introduce CB2 to the community. And I don't know if others have this challenge. It's a different type of audience coming out of the pandemic. And so thinking about tabling at street fairs or other community events. So if anyone here has had success with similar outreach, I'd love to hear about it offline. And also, we're also exploring a mentorship model for new board members. So whether you do that informally or formally, I'd love to know what's worked or hasn't worked. Same thing, what's worked or hasn't worked for community outreach. So I'd love to connect offline on those two topics. Thank you.
I know we have some chairs that have a lot of experience with that too, so you're in good hands.
Great.
Last but not least, somebody else?
Sure, I'll keep it short as well. I'll abbreviate, that we had a very extensive meeting with the chair of SLA that both Tammy and Valerie mentioned, and SLA has managed to monopolize most of our time this month. We had, another extremely long meeting, a normal meeting of SLA as we continue to do. But this month, we also had a joint meeting with Transportation and SLA, which I'm sure maybe some of you read about in the news. Because there was considerable tensions around the canal open street in particular. A lot of community members who were opposed to the resolution that we had, which was negotiated after numerous meetings for 8 or 9 months, to come to an agreement for 4 days. I think it was 3 to 10 p.m. Groups that wanted to roll that back, groups that wanted to roll it, kind of extend it 7 days a week. So, you know, both of my transportation and SLA chairs did an excellent job at refereeing that meeting. It was probably, I can't remember how many people testified, probably like 70 or something like that. But it was an excellent run meeting. And we ended up trying to balance everybody's concerns and explain to them like why we can, how and why we came to this resolution. And we voted to approve all 13 open streets, including Canal Open Street, and we'll continue to be working with both DOT, I'm blanking on what it's called, the manager of the open street, which is one of the restaurants, as well as some of the other community groups to try and just like deal with the enforcement of
The ambassadors.
Yes, to deal with like just enforcement, sanitation, making sure that, you know, the restaurants are actually closing down their shops and primarily not over serving people drinks. We'll also be having another special meeting reviewing some SLA policies later this month. And then we had a couple of fun progress events related to infrastructure improvements in our district, including the Tompkins Square Fieldhouse reopening, which for those of you who don't know, is like the northern part of Tompkins Square. Notoriously horrific bathrooms that were just renovated, and a whole new area that is reopened to the area. And it brought a lot of attention to the costs of these projects, which was $5 million, which was a sticker shock to most people. But that's another conversation. And then over on the border with CB1 and 3, we got to see the new hydraulic flip infrastructures for the coastal flooding. So I think those will be continuing to be worked on, but you can sort of see them now. So it was exciting to see progress on the resiliency front. And then internally, among many different things, including new members, old members turning over. I'll talk to Valerie you about that, more mentorship of folks. We got to review some scopes from Pratt Institute regarding I think I had mentioned last month, we're looking to commission a study on the more specific needs of affordability bands in our community. So we're gonna take a look at that, kind of work with the demographer that we hired to look at the 2020 census data change and trying to piece together a clearer image of like what our actual affordability needs are. We also convened an outreach committee, an outreach task force. So that's making some progress, and Valerie, I'm happy to talk to you offline about that, and I'll leave it at that.
Thanks.
Sorry,
yeah.
Are these fully open streets that you're talking about, or just open dining within a street that still has traffic?
Some of them are open streets. They're all within the open streets program, and some of them have open dining. But not all of them.
Because my understanding was the new requirements are for fully open streets. They're looking for the 50% seating, and we don't have any in our district. So
yeah,
I'm just wondering if it's people who have the same understanding of that the request is for changing the rules for fully open streets.
Changing the rules?
Changing the seating rules.
DOT rule change.
Yeah.
It's not only open streets, I understand it's pedestrian plazas as well.
Yeah.
So it's a DOT pedestrian plaza, which again, we have one in our district.
but also DOT open streets, so it's kind of all of it.
Yeah.
I understood it's only fully open streets, which means that the street is closed. Is that not the case?
Versus just like a,
Just having
like a
open
roadside
dining.
cafe kind of.
Open dining, yeah,
I'm
not sure.
I think you're correct, but I'm not certain.
I'll send you the link if you want afterwards. Just send me an email and share.
That's why I brought up the question, because it just does, we don't have any of those in our district, so we assume maybe in the future we will, so we're happy to participate, but we don't.
I'll share the flyer also on my to-do list with you guys and especially with Tammy, because the one that's the biggest issue in our district is the restaurant run one on Dykeman. And that is all of the above, right? It's closed, fully closed. Sometimes it's on open streets, but it's also run by nonprofit and restaurant space. So then you have like, you know, there's sometimes activities that it's like, oh, this is for the public, and then you have to have a table, meaning, but there's also consumption amounts, right? So like, you gotta buy a bottle to sit there. So, you know, that whole like have not dynamic. So I do encourage, because we're gonna have the all operators there, and you can hear a little bit the different dynamics and styles of public plaza running.
We have an application for an open street that's not by a nonprofit, it's by the restaurant for their use, and I don't get how we would close a street for a restaurant is a little confusing for me, so they can operate.
Is it just the one restaurant, Tammy, or is it multiple? Okay. Because we have some applicants who were restaurants, but they kind of operate it for the whole street with multiple ones, so.
But still all private restaurants, but just all together. Like they
Private
combine.
restaurants, but an open street, yeah.
May I say, one of the open streets plans that we have on the Upper West Side is sponsored through the Columbus Avenue Business Improvement District. And the spirit of that is certainly not to hurt any commercial operators, but it's for the public. It's not really a commercial enterprise. It's and that's on Sundays for limited dates. But yeah, it's really not effectively, it's supposed to be good for the commercial businesses, but it really is not a commercial operation.
Great. Before we wrap, I just wanted to give some updates that the borough president wasn't able to, specific to CB. So hopefully some of you have already gotten announcements at your full board. I know there are a number of full boards still coming up tonight through next week. But we sent the email to all of you and your district managers about term limits on the website. So not only do you have that list, it's also publicly available on our website. So if we're making the announcement at all full boards, so members can go and take a look for themselves, so they don't have to pester you about these. But yeah, so we're happy that so far, I think we've only had maybe like 2 that were flagged for us where the record was slightly different than what we had. But for the most part, everything else has been pretty smooth. If you do have any flags or any records that we need to review, just please let me know. I'm happy to take a look at those. Did you have a question or you?
No, we have some to flag. I just didn't know if we sent a liaison to you or how. So.
Yeah, they can either connect with Porfirio or myself, whichever you prefer.
And Eric, I know CB4, we actually have a task force, and it also to address your questions. We just formed a task force of board members, obviously, to address the institutional knowledge that we have so many members of institutional knowledge, especially on land use and transportation, as you know, that will be leaving soon. And so we have a task force addressing how we're gonna mentor, how we're gonna transfer that knowledge to the next people, because now it's gonna be turnover that, you know, a lot of people won't remember what happened in 1995 on a block lot, you know, so.
And you've got a lot of good support here. I know some folks that are doing co-chairs where you have somebody who's farther away from term limits than
Yes,
others.
we're trying to, so we also sent out to our board members a survey on how best to do that. So if you want, we can share our results with you guys and what we did. And so that just was enacted last month. So the results aren't all fully in, but we.
I'd also flag, I think I recirculated for, I don't remember who was with you, Sandy, the managing, like we have, I know that was open data, I think. We did as part of our leadership training series, like kind of how you can manage institutional knowledge and like build up new leaders. So I'd also recommend on our YouTube, we do have those recordings. So if that's helpful at all, I would recommend that. the other thing I was gonna say is, definitely by this time next month, you'll have your new members. So the plan again is, so hopefully by the second week of May, have, those new appointments. So just be on the lookout for those, and we'll touch base with you before, they come online, obviously. But, for chairs who haven't been part of this process before, we will always, we will send letters, of course, for everyone who's been reappointed, as well as connecting all the new members via email with the chair and district manager so that you can take on the onboarding process that you have internally within your own. We are gonna have our own onboarding session that we're gonna be doing virtually. So we will probably plan for that sometime a little later in May, once everyone's kind of started to settle in to their boards.
Just to clarify, when you say the second week of May, do you mean the 5th or the 12th? Like this is the second,
Oh, yeah.
the first full week or?
The week of the 5th. Yeah, that is, my hope is, all things going smoothly, that I can hopefully, try to get it done, if not at the end of that previous week. So I think it's like May the 1st or May the 2nd.
This is Friday.
That certainly kicking off the second week, I can hopefully be in a good place.
Okay, yeah, because I think we flagged that before, but our full board meeting is that.
Yeah, exactly.
That Thursday, so.
I know, I think there's also CB7 meets that week, CB4 and CB10, so I'm aware.
I know previously we'd asked if we could get people's resumes as well.
Yeah, so we do have that available now. So it was something that we had checked in with general counsel just to make sure for privacy reasons. But that has been cleared. So I think we did it as it was asked. So I'm sorry if you didn't get them for last time, but we'll make sure. I know that it's helpful for assigning committees and things like that, so.
And one other question, will you meet with us again about any of the applicants or?
Yeah, I think we'll just probably have one more touch base. It'll be a brief touch base, but we'll touch on all the applicants before they come in.
Great.
I haven't asked based on your report and I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Leslie was sharing. Could we get the Civic Engagement Commission to come to our meeting at some point? I think there's a huge, I know they're super understaffed, but I did not realize a lot of what they did. I know they post like their webinar trainings, but we never get a heads up as to when their trainings take place. I've heard that they've also done like language surveys or like they have like surveys that they want board or that they do for board members. But in our case, like we've never had a touch point with them. And I think in the discussion and the context of like initiatives we're taking on in terms of institutional knowledge, I think it's more than fair for them to come here and let us know what they plan to do, given that that's also their mandate, so.
Great, yeah, I'm happy to have that conversation with them. I do know that the Civic Engagement Commission has been thinking about term limits and the effects on boards, so I'm happy to touch base with them. They have a really good outreach person, so I'm sure if there's a disconnect, he's happy to make sure that he's available. Also, Valerie, one of your points, don't hold me to it, but I'm trying to get Landmarks to join us for a meeting as well. So I know that was something that you brought up about signage, and I know some other folks have some questions related to Landmarks, and I think they wanted to talk about their process for how they review applications and things that they look for, just to be more helpful and like streamlining for boards. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. See you next month.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thanks, everybody.